what's up guys? Matt here, and welcome to another video. I'm so happy to be back in front of this. You guys have no idea. It's been a long time. My daughter, holy cow. I was watching some recent YouTube videos of mine, and they've been about my life and school and stuff, and I haven't really talked about books lately. And in a recent review, or a review that I did, I talked about I was going to have a daughter, and that was some time ago. And then I had my daughter in the video for the Way of Kings review. But our daughter is about to be she is 11 months old. She's about to be a year old. Wow. I'm blown away. She is an amazing little girl. She is just perfect. She is awesome. And I certainly cannot forget our son either. He's 4. He's in preschool. He is absolutely loving it. I apologize if I took my glasses off and it's weird for you. I had to clean them. They're a little dirty. But wow, I'm so excited to be here in front of this. I've got some time to record this. Wow, here we go. Okay, are you ready? If you saw the title of the video, get ready for some of the best introductions to fantasy. Oh my gosh, I've been recently reading Dead House Gates by Stephen Erickson of the Malazan Book of the Fallen, and I thought I wanted to talk a little bit about the introductions to fantasy. I've got some books over here. I've got some shelves over here. You might be able to see some really good books behind me, and I will definitely talk about those. Now, this is my preference, and I've got a few different types of books, different perspectives of the way the books were written and things like that. But I wanted to start with probably the best introduction to fantasy. That's going to be The Hobbit. My preference would be The Hobbit by J.R.R. Tolkien. This particular edition is 305 pages. 305 pages. Really, really quick, fun, happy story. I don't want to get into too much detail on the stories. If you know The Hobbit, you know it was written for J.R.R. Tolkien's kids at the time. He was kind of narrating this story. And this is a great introduction to fantasy. If you've never read fantasy before, if you're a young kid, you can read this story. It's awesome. There's some violence, but it's basically not too violent. I apologize for talking about violence. It's a great introduction to fantasy. J.R.R. Tolkien's The Hobbit. Incredible story. Great introduction to fantasy. Okay, now, another kid-friendly YA would be Harry Potter. This is Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone. This one, and just because I like looking at how many pages these are, 309. So you kind of see a trend, 306, 309. These shorter YA books. Great introduction to fantasy. If you know Harry Potter and the story of Harry Potter, he's a boy who is a wizard. You're a wizard, Harry. That's my Hagrid impression. This is a great book. I love the setting of this book at the school, Hogwarts. I love that it basically goes by times of year. Like there's Halloween and Christmas and things like that. And it starts outside of the school and then gets into the school. And then it's a really great introduction. I have not read all of the Harry Potter. I need to read books 4 through 7. So I've got some ways to go with Harry Potter. But another great introduction to fantasy. Okay, now here's where things get a little bit different. Those were YA, younger books. I'd like to start introducing you to some more fantasy. Now, if you're scared of book numbers, how long the books can be in a series, I'm gonna jump to The Eye of the World by Robert Jordan. This is the Wheel of Time, and if you can see behind me, 14 books. There are 14 books in this series, and it is amazing. It is awesome. This is similarly to The Lord of the Rings, which I'll talk about. Similarly to that, this is the hero's journey. You follow a group of friends. There is this prophecy of a dragon reborn. The dragon is a person, but it has a really awesome magic system that is well developed and well explained. If you have questions in this book, they will get answered in the ensuing 14 books. Amazing series. The Eye of the World, The Wheel of Time by Robert Jordan, finished by Brandon Sanderson, which I'll talk about in a minute. Next, I'm going to go to Game of Thrones. Game of Thrones, the series is called A Song of Ice and Fire, which is very interesting. I don't see that anywhere on this cover. Literally anywhere. Right there. A Song of Ice and Fire. It's not on this cover for some reason. Game of Thrones, another awesome fantasy introduction. And I don't mean introduction as in like the first book of the series is a good introduction to the series. I mean a good introduction for those who've not read fantasy. Is that right? Is that what I wanted to do? Yeah. Maybe. I'll decide. Yeah, this is a great introduction to fantasy. Reading fantasy. Start here, you get multiple perspectives, you get incredible characters, you get a really interesting chapter format. And what I mean by that is every chapter is a different perspective. It's really cool. Really cool. Game of Thrones, A Song of Ice and Fire by George R. R. Martin. I've only read this book in the series. I've not read more than that. It's not finished. That's a whole other thing. So, all right, next, I'm going to go with The Way of Edan by Dr. Philip Chase. This blew me away. Philip Chase is a YouTuber, professor. I have a review of this book on the channel. This blew me away. Absolutely awesome. The writing style is similar to that of The Lord of the Rings, of more of a classical fantasy with incredible prose. I love reading Philip Chase. It is just beautiful. Yeah. Awesome. Awesome stuff. The Way of Edan, an incredible introduction to fantasy. If you've never read fantasy, this is a self-published author, so highly recommend Philip Chase's The Way of Edan. Amazing stuff. Okay. I'm going to move to Assassin's Apprentice by Robin Hobb. Another amazing story. This one was a little different for me because it was written in first-person perspective. I typically like a good third-person perspective. John jumped. John walked down the road. This is, I jumped down the road. I slipped down. His jaws on my this and that. But an amazing story, a really cool magic system. This book series is a quadrilogy of trilogy. I think there's 16 books in this series. Amazing. I'm so excited to get to read more of this. Just awesome. Awesome. I love the writing style. It's a great story. Great introduction to fantasy. Assassin's Apprentice by Robin Hobb. Okay. Now, obviously, we have to talk about Brandon Sanderson. Now, you can go one of two ways with Brandon Sanderson. You can go The Way of Kings, which is a massive, massive, epic fantasy, or you can go Mistborn, The Final Empire, or the Mistborn series. Now, these are two great places to start with Brandon Sanderson, with, really, and there's some great places to start with Brandon Sanderson. Tress of the Emerald Sea, Mistborn, or The Way of Kings. This one would be a great introduction to fantasy. Tress of the Emerald Sea is written really well. The story is really engaging and exciting. The characters are well developed. The story is great. This is an awesome introduction to fantasy. Tress of the Emerald Sea. Now, this is a single book. It's not a series. Tress of the Emerald Sea. Great introduction to fantasy. Mistborn is going to be 15 or 16 books, but the original trilogy has 3 books. There is a second would-be trilogy, but it's a quadrilogy. So there are 7 books in this current Mistborn series. There are 2 eras, Era 1, Era 2. This is a great introduction to fantasy. This has a really cool magic system that involves 16 different uses of allomantic metals. Really awesome. Really great characters. Really tight story. I really like Mistborn. Mistborn is great. Now, The Way of Kings. This is the reason why I read fantasy. Okay. When I started reading books again, when I came back to reading in 2022, so it's been a couple years, I started with The Hobbit, and then I read Star Wars Aftermath, which is a Star Wars book. At that time, Brandon Sanderson was a name that people recognized and a name that people understood as a fantasy author. But now he's blown up. He is all over TikTok, all over everything. #1 Kickstarter in the world for his secret projects. Amazing. A great writer, great stuff. A lot of books, a lot of content he pushes out. The Way of Kings was my introduction to epic fantasy. This is an incredible story. The Words of Radiance, The Way of Kings, Words of Radiance, Oathbringer, Rhythm of War. There's 4 books out right now. Wind and Truth is the 5th book in the series of the Stormlight Archive, which is going to be the first half. There'll be two halves, 2 eras, I think, in The Way of Kings, or in the Stormlight Archive. You have to read this. This is like a Marvel movie written on paper. There will be moments where you are literally standing up, cheering, or crying, or jumping up. It is insane, this book. It is awesome. It is very well written. There are so many characters that you won't have trouble understanding who's who. You get the names, you really understand, you really care for each of these people. You'll laugh. It's so good. This story is so good. And something I love about Brandon Sanderson's books, or specifically the Stormlight Archive, is there are, and I'm trying to find it pretty quickly, there are illustrations in the book. It's not a picture book, but there are illustrations of certain scenes and certain places that help you really ground you in the world. And that's like that for everything. Like, this is the map, and it's got the 10 orders of the Knights Radiant. Oh my gosh. I could gush and gush about Brandon Sanderson and The Way of Kings. This is an incredible introduction to epic fantasy. Epic fantasy. Multiple characters, multiple storylines. Okay. And now I have to mention, this is going to be an honorable mention. Are you ready for my honorable mention for the best introduction to fantasy? Gardens of the Moon. This is not an introduction to fantasy. This is if you've read fantasy before and you would like a challenge. Yeah, I'll just say this is a challenging book for those who have read Brandon Sanderson, The Hobbit, Lord of the Rings. This is incredible. This is superb. The prose will have you laughing. Stephen Erickson is an incredible author. This world is very well developed. You can certainly see that from the first page. It is something special. Gardens of the Moon is something special. And there are 10 books in this series, and there are 20 or so other books outside the series, little novellas and things like that, written from the other author. Ian Esselmont is another person. He and Stephen Erickson developed this D&D game that they had, and then it became a book series, and that's what this is. Gardens of the Moon is not an introduction to fantasy, but it is something you should certainly read. It is amazing. Okay, I hope that helped. I hope you enjoyed. I'm excited to be here in front of my books. Yeah, I really hope you guys have a great day. I will see you in another video. Okay, bye.